Welcome to Into the Woods, a journey with the tarot. Here, we wander together into the woods to explore ourselves, the world around us, and the mysteries and joys of life through the tarot. I'm your host, Mari, a professional tarot reader and a musician. Grab your deck, and off we go. Welcome back to Into the Woods. Today is the second episode in my series on animals in the tarot, and today we're looking at horses. Wow, horses, what a magical and majestic animal. I find it so fascinating and cool that humans have such a close connection with horses, and we have for so long. It's like some ancient agreement that we understand each other and work together, and of course, sadly, we have abused them and used them in really harmful ways. But the people that I know personally who ride horses or own horses, care for horses, they truly love them and connect with them on a spiritual level. I don't know if you know any horse people, but I have known a good number of them just at various times in my life. And there's just something different about people who work with horses. They're gentle. They maybe enjoy the company of horses more than people. But there's this interesting combination of gentleness, but confidence and steadiness that's required to build trust with horses and be someone who horses are comfortable around. As a mom with two young kids, I have also seen how children just love horses. If you cruise around Netflix at all, the kids section, you will find so many shows that center around horses or unicorns. My Little Pony, Spirit, Unicorn Academy, so many, because kids just love horses. They're so magical. That just shows me that we have this deep magical connection that maybe we're even born with. When I was a kid, I was so into horses. I collected figurines. I knew all the breeds. I had a cool barn with stables. It was one of my favorite things to play with. And my mom actually kept my whole collection, and I recently gave them to my daughters, which is so sweet. So yeah, I think we have a really natural connection with horses, and they've become an interesting symbol in many different mediums, and definitely in the tarot, we see horses on a number of cards. So it's interesting to explore that connection. Before we do dive into this connection with horses and how it shows up in the cards, I want to share some fun tarot synchronicity stories. So after I released episode 8 about dogs in the tarot, I was contemplating which animal to do next, and horses was my first thought. I sort of set it aside because I was going to do a couple other episodes before doing another animal one. And then this week, I decided to use my spirit animal oracle deck one day instead of tarot, and I pulled horse spirit. In that deck, the horse spirit is all about freedom, and it's just a beautiful card. And that day I also went to go get my hair cut, and my stylist ended up talking about how much she loved horses and unicorns. And I swear I was not the one who started it. I was laughing on the inside because of the synchronicity. And it was just a fun reminder of how special horses are to people, and that I had wanted to do that episode. Then this morning, it's Thursday, which is the day that I normally work on the podcast, I was doing my morning pull, and I did 2 cards, one for my daily message and one for inspiration for the podcast. And I kind of decided in my head that if a card with horses appeared, then today would be the day for the horse episode. And again, I totally laughed out loud because I pulled the Chariot and saw not one, but 2 wildly running horses. In the deck I was using, they are actual horses and not the sphinxes like we see in the classic Rider-Waite-Smith. And many decks still depict the Chariot with horses, including the Tarot de Marseille, which predates the Rider-Waite-Smith. So anyway, thank you, Tarot, and thank you, Spirit, for making the message super obvious. Today, I want to read a little excerpt from the Taschen Book of Symbols on horses and horse as a symbol. I found the first little chunk of text in the chapter on horse. So beautifully written. So here we go. This is from Taschen, Book of Symbols on horse. Emerging from a long evolution stretching back nearly 50 million years comes the horse, a wild beauty grazing peacefully on the plains, and then suddenly breaking free with snorting and fiery breath, swift as the wind. It flies across the landscape with thundering hooves, as if to run out of its own skin for the love of freedom. The horse is a fabulous, striving power to which we aspire for good or ill. We tamed them. They came to know us. We whispered to them and they understood us. We broke them and they gave us their service. We tied them to our plows and carts. We settled the Wild West upon their backs, and they have carried us into and through countless wars and expansive conquests. So it goes on quite a bit longer, but I wanted to pull out some key words from that excerpt. So some terms that I think are super closely tied to horses as a symbol are wild beauty, unpredictable, love of freedom, striving power, service, war, aristocracy, and I'm going to tie, they didn't use the word wealth, but I'm going to kind of tie that in with that, mutual bond, inflated pride, and dreams of conquest. And I think you'll find that those key words can be applied to some of the tarot cards depending on which side of horse energy the card is trying to show. So yes, a beautiful excerpt from Taschen. So much history with horses and our taming of them and using them as our own tools, our mastery over horses in some ways. So even though we have tamed them, I think that the sort of free spirit, the unpredictable side of them is still there. We have to go into some Greek mythology a little bit and bring up Poseidon, the Greek god of the sea. I learned not that long ago, actually, when I was reading a book to my children about Greek mythology, that the horse is tied to Poseidon as an animal symbol and an animal that he often would take the form of. And that totally confused me at first because, of course, I was just thinking Poseidon would be all sea creatures. But it is said that he created the first horse in a competition for the city of Athens that he did not win, obviously, because the city is called Athens. Athena won the competition. Some accounts say that the horse was crafted from a great wave, and others that he drove his trident into the ground and the horse emerged. So what is the connection there? I think really if we think about from a zoomed out perspective, qualities of the ocean and qualities of horses, that we do find a lot of overlap. Horses and the ocean are both absolutely stunningly beautiful, spiritual, and yet they are unpredictable, wild, and have immense power. And we try to harness the power of the ocean as well. Obviously, it cannot be tamed like a horse. So Poseidon gave the horse to mankind, and Poseidon was also known for being wild, unpredictable, moody, like the wild horse. And he would often take the form of a horse in his, crazy doings around the world. I think that's a really beautiful correlation, horses and the ocean. And then it was Athena who gave us the bridle. And so how cool is that? Athena represents the refining, the restraining, the mastering, the sort of wisdom in how the horse can be used and literally the taming of the horse. We have thanks to her. In the tarot images, which we'll explore a little later, we do see both these more wild representation of horses and we see the more tame representations. And I think that we can kind of bring in those qualities of, Poseidon being more the wild, unpredictable, moody side, Athena being the more wise, refined, cultured side, and kind of marry that with the cards a little bit. I love bringing in Greek mythology and other mythology into the tarot. So there's also a connection to Mars or Ares, who is often seen riding a chariot led by wild horses. And of course, we have used horses in war all throughout history. And of course, this brings to mind the more aggressive, masculine qualities that we associate with horses too. Power, strength, speed, the physicality, muscle, the endurance, an instrument of war, right? So that connection with Mars or Aries energy is also there. And I think that kind of ties into the knight on horseback image, right? This is another very archetypal image that we think of with horses is a knight on horseback, representing bravery, war, strength, conquest, and skill. Of course, it does take skill to tame and ride a horse. So that sort of harnessing that wild energy, that mastery of the animal is sort of built into the knight as a symbol. And of course, 4 of the cards that we're going to talk about with horses are the knights in the tarot. When we think of knights, we do think of brave quests. We think of action. We think of them, saving somebody or fighting off the dragon and winning the princess. So they are very action oriented, and the horse is the companion who helps them travel those great distances and take messages from here to there. For knights and for all people, horses have been a main mode of travel all throughout history. And so we can also see horses as a symbol for travel and for messengers, right? Sending news, sending word, and just general movement, travel from one place to the next. And that also relates in the tarot quite a bit. So let's dig into the cards that actually portray horses. There are 8 cards. I'm counting 8 because I'm including the Chariot. And those cards are the 4 knights, the 6 of wands, the Chariot, Death, and the Sun. So we've got 3 majors, 4 court cards, and 1 minor. So let's start with the knights. In tarot, we have 4 court cards in every suit: page, knight, queen, and king. So all 4 knights are depicted on horseback, and the pages, which we think of as sort of the younger character coming before the knights, are typically just seen standing on the ground holding the object of the suit. So first off, this just elevates the knight, putting them on horseback, showing more maturity and growth in the suit. Now, not only are we holding and learning the suit, the pentacle, the wand, whatever it is, now we're also riding a horse. We're also moving, taking action, and still have the object of the suit in our hands. Then we can bring in some more of the symbolism we discussed. So the knights often represent some kind of movement or travel. They are sometimes known to be messengers. They do represent strength, striving, and conquest within the suit. There is a level of mastery that goes above the page, but there is some sort of like effort required. I think of the king and queen as being sort of like effortless in their mastery of the suit, but the knight is still putting in this effort to learn, to grow, to master the suits. And we see that represented in how they are reining in the horse, right? They are actively controlling it. And on that note, all 4 of the knight's horses are saddled, they have a bridle on, the reins are being held by the knight, indicating this more sort of controlled, refined, more of a tool and companion to humans than, say, a wild horse, which we will see later. Not only are the knights exploring their element, they are taking action. They are doing something with it, right? With horses, we think of that action. They're powerful runners. They help us get from one place to the other, right? The knights are all about action, going somewhere, following the suit, brandishing the suits, right? Brandishing the sword, using the cup to guide your next step. I think any card with multiple figures in it, meaning, in the knights, we have a knight and a horse, not just a single person. I believe that this shows a more extroverted or relational process. So if the pages are on a more inward journey of learning on their own, studying, then the knights are actually taking those skills out in the world, in work, in relationships, in projects, in real places. So I think those qualities apply to all the knights, but then if we do look at the cards, we see the horses behaving very differently. So starting with the most still picture, which is the Knight of Pentacles, the Pentacles does tend to be our slowest suit. It's grounded, it's Taurus energy, right? Doesn't want to move. very much in the present moment. And so that horse is standing completely still, right? It's still looking off to the right. It's looking ahead. It is considering action. It is planning, but it's not running or moving. So we can think of the Knight of Pentacles as being the slowest, steadiest force there. The Knight of Cups is in some gentle motion. The horse has its leg lifted up as if walking. It's very graceful, right? It's not a charge. It's not a trot. It's almost like dressage. And so the Cups is our suit of emotions, our suit of love. And so I love how this horse has this grace and beauty, this slow, deliberate movement. And the Knight is looking right at the cup, using the love and the emotions to direct the horse and direct, themselves where they're going to go next. Next, we have the Knight of Wands. And the Knight of Wands horse is back on its hind legs. It is rearing. It's wild, it's energetic, it's powerful, and it's, inspired movement. You can imagine like maybe the knight just clicked their heels and it's roaring up and getting ready to go and take action. So the wand suit, of course, is our suit of energy, passion, fire. And so, naturally the Knight of Wands is going to be moving a little quicker and have a bit of a more wild energy, like an untamable fire. Lastly, we have the Knight of Swords. And in this one, it's like full battle cry, brandishing the sword, flying, right? Absolutely flying. And I like to think of this knight as being the most impulsive. This knight is just fully trusting their intellect, their knowledge, knowing that they're right, maybe to a fault, and just charging ahead. The swords are kind of the most brutal and violent suit. And so we see that here in the Knight of Swords too. There's no softness. There's no emotion holding them back. There's cool, cold logic and determination here. So I think we get this beautiful range in the behavior of the horses, from this slow, steady, grounded, heavy-footed horse to the grace and beauty in the cups, to the wild rearing of the wands, to the absolute battle charge of the swords. And I think that they both enhance the quality of the suit, but also might give you some hints as to the quality of the message, the quality of the action, or maybe what's needed, right? Maybe sometimes you need to drop the emotion and just say, fuck it, we're going and we're just going to do this, Knight of Swords style. Opposing that, the Knight of Pentacles might indicate the need to slow down and take a moment for some grounded planning and observing. Next up, we have the Six of Wands. This is our classic victory card. So after the battle that happens in the Five of Wands, where we see the five figures sort of fighting each other with the wands, someone comes out victorious, rides home from battle or competition, and is being cheered on by a crowd. So here we see the horse as a symbol of, yes, elevating that person up above the others, showing us they are victorious, possibly a messenger. This card does come through with sort of victorious or exciting messages or news. For example, last week I pulled this card as my husband was walking into my office telling me that he got a little bit of a bonus, which was very exciting. And this example not only demonstrates the messenger quality of it, but also that sort of conquest, right? We talked about the horse as a symbol of conquest, and this card is certainly showing us that. Next is the Chariot. And in this one, again, in Rider-Waite-Smith, we see the two Sphinxes. In many other decks, you will still see horses, typically depicted black and white. We didn't talk about color for the knights, but the color also kind of gives you some more flavor of the suits as well. And I think that is also something to take note of. In the Chariot, we have one black, one white, and the charioteer reigning in both of them, mastering duality through force and through will. Again, when we have a card with multiple figures in it, I do tend to read that as more of a external or relational card. And this card is often seen as some kind of achievement or an egoic victory, an accomplishment that requires some kind of force and real action. So again, we're seeing that theme of power, action, movement, doing something. Next, we have the death card. In the death card, I do think the horse is, again, a symbol of a messenger, right? We have the messenger of death here. And one thing I find absolutely fascinating about this card, this is one of those tarot Easter eggs, is that the horse and the rider are in almost the exact same position as the Knight of Cups. Now, surrounding the rider on horseback, right, the skeleton on horseback, we see total carnage, people begging for life, people scared, all kinds of stuff. So it's a scary scene, but we see death in the same position as the Knight of Cups, this calm, graceful, soft position. And again, that horse is lifting its leg, almost like a really graceful dressage type of walk. It isn't this aggressive Knight of Swords state, which, looking at the people in the card, you might think they're looking at the Knight of Swords, angrily charging at them. But no, it's slow and graceful death. And I love how that connection to the Cups card, I don't know, takes some of the fear out of it for me. It's like, yes, even though we have this crazy reaction to death where we're very fearful, it's really this loving thing, right? It is deep, it's soft, it's more Knight of Cups energy, not aggressive, right? It's just not. And there is a lot of water in the background of the death card too. And I think that both the water in the card and this mirroring of the Knight of Cups leads us to this understanding that death is an emotional process. It's grief. It's also like something we can only imagine. It's definitely not related to pentacles, right? It's not something tangible that we can like really feel and understand in the here and now. It's in the world of dreams, of the unknown. And so I think that connection to the cups is really cool. And last but not least, we have the Sun. And in the Sun card, this is the only card where the horse is not saddled or bridled. It is completely free. So here's our wild horse. And the Sun card is a card of clarity, of freedom, of joy. And so I think it's really notable that this is the one card that we get the wild horse with no saddle, and it's bearing a child. And so even though it's unsaddled, it's still choosing to connect and like safely bear a human child, which I think is just so beautiful. The child is also nude, reinforcing that message of total freedom of spirit and hinting at our own animal nature. The horse is white, and this is also making me think it's interesting that the horse in the Sun and Death, they're both white horses, right? Death is not riding in on a black horse. Death is riding in on a white horse, showing us that both the experience of the Sun and the experience of death are ones that purify, that bring clarity, that help us to maybe process shadow, actually, and bring some things to light. And I think that also makes death a little bit less scary in terms of the meaning of the card and what it might mean for you if you pull it. So I think it's safe to say if you pull a card with a horse, you can expect some excitement, some action, some movement, some real things happening in the real world. And if you're fortunate, maybe that's some kind of victory or conquest. It could also be some kind of message or messenger. But remember, horses are unpredictable and love their freedom, so are often difficult to control. So take that as you will for your readings. I hope you've enjoyed this second installment of Animals in the Tarot. Thank you so much for listening today. If you are enjoying the podcast, you can support really easily by leaving a 5-star review. You can also subscribe on YouTube and like the podcast episodes there. If you want to connect with me, I am on social media, Instagram and TikTok at Mari of the Woods. That's Mari. If you're interested in booking a reading with me, they are available on my website, mariofthewoods.com. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, happy wandering.